Before we start this video, I'm really excited to announce we have been sponsored this season by Football Prizes, and the first prize is here. It is a raffle website where you can get involved with loads of different clubs. However, obviously we're going to stick predominantly with Everton, and this week we've got an absolute banger of a competition. £4.95 a raffle ticket, and you could win a signed Duncan Ferguson shirt, framed, the works. This shirt is absolutely beautiful, absolutely fantastic. It ends on Monday at 7:30, so make sure you go and get a raffle ticket. It's exclusive. There's not massive numbers of raffle tickets, so genuinely there's a very good chance that you can win this. This shirt, I don't know how much they retail for, probably 100, 200, 300 quid, I don't know, but honestly, get yourself on the website. Link is in the description below. Go and get yourself a raffle ticket. I've got one. I'll see you there.
What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again. And of course, we're back for the Mike and Millsy show. And we've had some great feedback on this show over the last few weeks, Millsy. You know, we've seen loads of comments, loads of people on YouTube. And to be fair to us, we've been fairly negative over the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've said it at the end of every podcast. We've said, "Look, I'm sorry, it's another negative one."
Yeah.
I feel like I might have to. I've had to take a reality check, and I mean, the first half was shit, and the second half was amazing. Firstly, how are you? And fucking hell, what a turn up, eh?
Mate, unbelievable. How am I? I'm absolutely fine. The sunglasses are on the head. And as always, the nice cold lager to celebrate Mike being on annual leave is with us. But yeah, no, it's I've got a night off on a podcast tonight, but we don't have any time off on the Mike and Millsy show. I'm absolutely fantastic. Mike, how are you? How's your holiday?
Yeah, it's lovely, mate. It's absolutely lovely. It's just ending too soon almost. We've got too much to do and not enough days to do it, but it is lovely, mate. It really is. It's nice from the normality, isn't it? And it weren't a bad setting to watch the Everton game, really. You know, we were in the harbour. I had a pint. I had my phone in hand. I watched the entire game, overlooking the bay, seeing some Southampton fans crying when Decore got his second goal. It was absolutely stupendously fantastic, mate.
Fantastic. No, mate, I cannot. I'm sure we'll get into it. I am going to be grinning like a Cheshire cat talking about going back that game on Saturday. It was absolutely amazing. So I know you're enjoying your holiday, but next time at Goodison Park, mate, we'll have to catch up, have a proper pint and a get together. I guarantee you that you're going to love it. It was unbelievable. I think every Evertonian who was there on Saturday should give themselves a massive pat on the back, because there were certain media outlets who were waiting. They were baying. Even one media outlet reported that there was booing when there wasn't. Yeah. There was people waiting for us to let that club down, and no one in that ground did. Everyone there on Saturday deserves a massive round of applause, because you were fantastic.
Yeah, and a shout out as well to Lee Martin, who was an Everton fan, and his daughter Sophie, who unfortunately lost their life in the most tragic of circumstances in Plymouth. So thoughts go out to their family as well. Truly horrific. But look, let's get on to the game. Obviously, I wasn't there. I didn't get to share that moment with you all, mate. Honestly, I got goosebumps just watching it on TV.
Look, I think I've just said there the fans deserve lots of credit, and I really do believe that, but the club as well were fantastic. Leading up to the game itself, I think around 10 minutes before kickoff, they paraded Richarlison with his Olympic gold medal. They got everyone going. There was a fantastic video. Well, there were two fantastic videos, really. The first one was a tribute to people that we've unfortunately lost, and it was that really nice acoustic version of Z Cars, and it was a tribute to people who could no longer go to the game, and that was well received. And the second video was sort of the best moments at Goodison, goals from the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, right up until like Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring goals 2 seasons ago in front of a live crowd, and they done Spirit of the Blues, Here We Go, all together now, and they ramped that up, and then the sirens came on. Z Cars hit, and it was so emotional. It really, really was emotional. We've been locked down in our houses for 17 months, more or less, give or take a few months where we were allowed to go to Wetherspoons if we wanted to. And I was a lucky person. I went to the Wolves game in May. It doesn't compare to what I felt. I'm never going to take that ground and that place for granted again. And touch wood, we don't get political here, but let's hope that we can go to every game between now and that place. Us having to say goodbye to that place, because Saturday reminded me of how special that old lady is.
And she absolutely is. It's scary, really, and because you have such a sentimental attachment to essentially objects, but Goodison Park is not only the home of Everton Football Club, it's the home of football to a degree. Goodison Park is probably not necessarily the most worldwide renowned stadium now in the world. It probably isn't. You've got your Old Traffords that are probably, known in all areas of the world, but no one can take away when you Google how many firsts they are in English football, and the list for Goodison is there. First stadium with 3 tiers, first with 2, first with floodlights, first with the badge on corner flags. As a football club, Everton are massive, and Goodison's been a huge part of that.
Yeah, if you were going to show someone who was trying to learn about the English game for the first ever time, the history of the English game, we would be at the forefront of the conversation, as would Goodison Park. It would be at the forefront of, here is the history of the English League of Football, and here's who plays where. We'd be right at the forefront of that. And I think there's going to come a point, and we said this on the show, I think it was last week, there's going to become a point where it's going to become really emotional. It's going to be actually horrible to leave that ground. And I think a lot of it plays on my mind, and maybe a lot of other people's minds who went the game on Saturday themselves, that we've got to make the most of this place. I was at the ground 1:00. I went into the Winslow. I had a pint outside. I walked around the grounds. I got on the ground quite early, just in case there was any delays, which there wasn't. The club were fantastic with that. It was really smooth getting in the ground. I think the club had learned a lot from that lot across the park last week, having a nightmare. I think there must have been some sort of delegation, because it was really, really, really smooth getting in. And when you walk up those steps and you just see the glory, and it was so amazing. Some of my amazing memories in life are at that place. They just are. My first game, bunkering 3/4 time with my dad, because we had no money for season tickets. They used to let the gates open 15 minutes early, and back in the early 90s, you could get in because there was empty seats. And we had that rubbish in the early 90s. So jumping up in there and just smelling football as a young boy, and I got it all back on Saturday. And I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I am never taking that place for granted again. I'm really not.
No, good. Let's move on to the game then. I mean, it's very much a tale of two halves, isn't it? Really, I did the match reaction, and I know obviously, Millsy, you would have watched it. You saw my thoughts. You saw John's thoughts as well. He sort of did that little cameo at half time. Bless him.
Outside the ground,
yeah. So look. What was your thoughts on it? Because you were there, so you could tell me when we were up and we were down, sort of thing. You can hear the emotion. But for me, I thought the first 20 minutes, Everton were fine. However, the midfield allowed their midfield to just dictate. And the more the game went on, I felt that Armstrong, whoever that, I know he's a new signing from Blackburn. He knows where the net is. Yeah, he was gifted an opportunity by KEAN. Holgate couldn't get close enough. There was 2v1 and they scored. But what was the first half like from your perspective?
I can only tell you from where I sit and what it was like where I was. So I sit in the park end, quite near the away fans. When we went 1-0 down, there was nerves. The ground did seem to get a little bit but around me, a lot of people sort of turned that round into a positive, and the fans stayed with the team, because I think, like I said at the start of the show, there was a lot of media outlets who were waiting for us to be the pantomime villains on Saturday, if you will, and really turn on the team, and we never. The first 10 or 15 minutes, we looked like a very, very new team in a very, very new system. Damari Gray was getting on the ball, and he looked lively. He was playing in between the spaces where I haven't seen a player play like that, apart from James Rodriguez, since maybe Ross Barkley under Roberto Martinez's first season, where he was saying, I'm in dangerous areas, give me it because they're terrified of me and I'll do something. Richarlison didn't look too happy down the left. We did have some joy on a counter-attack from Jordan Pickford to Richarlison, where he flashed it across goal to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, didn't quite get there. He didn't look happy, and I was thinking, is he jaded? Is he tired? Have I misread this entire situation when I thought he was ready? Half-time came. I think that there was a big thing on Twitter about that we boos. That there was a smattering of boos, but I think you will get that when we're playing well and losing a half-time if certain elements aren't right. That shouldn't be misread as something that it's not. There was a smattering of boos. We didn't play well. What I will say about the performance itself is I can forgive the fact that we are a new team and we are trying to do things a little bit differently, and it showed. What I can't forgive is what we've seen a number of times now from me, and it's why does Michael Keane, when he's playing in a system which needs him to be further up, which he's not very good at, why does he have time on the ball? Why does he expect time on the ball? He's not a very good footballer. He's a very good defender to a certain extent. If the game is in front of him and we play a low block, he's a very good defender. I'm happy him playing in that system, winning duels, being deep in our box. When he's got the ball and he's trying to, and maybe something that Rafa will learn about Michael Keane, that he's not a player who can start the gates, start the move, start the build from the back. When that happened, I did think that's probably one of the last times that we'll probably see Michael Keane now, because I don't think the manager will risk having a player out there who can cost Everton Football Club games this season. For him personally and selfishly, I don't think he can risk it. Ben Godfrey wasn't involved for whatever reason. Maybe it's the isolation thing. I'm not too sure. Yerry Mina, I've got no idea why Yerry Mina didn't start. He has to come back in for Saturday. But the first half itself, it was a mixed bag. There was moments where I was quite glad that they happened, in short, because the second half was so different. Rafa's seeing what we see, and what I see, what I've seen all the time, is Richarlison has to play central. He has to play central. Yes, in his first season under Marco Silva, we had a lot of joy playing him on the left. As soon as he moved to the centre, he looks such a dangerous player for me that you have to play him there all the time. And I understand the fact that Damari Graves came in and he's the unknown. He can play as the 10, he can create things. I understand the system for the first half, to put Richarlison out on the left. It was night and day, second half, when he was pressing, which he did in the first minute of the second half to win that corner, which resulted in his goal. It was from him pressing in a central area and wanting to get on the ball, and again, wanting to get that goal. Richarlison, it could sometimes be the worst thing for us, but more times than not, it's a positive, and it's him wanting to score goals for Everton Football Club. He was in that mood in the second half. You saw it straight away. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he got fitter as the game went on. He didn't look that fit in the first half. He was charging it down, winning goal kicks and throws. As late as the game went on, he was doing that more and more. The system changes of even moving Keane and Holgate, because Keane and Holgate were marking the wrong players at times in the first half. I think the fact that it was night and day is massive, massive credit to the manager. Really is. For me.
Yeah. I do you know what? I absolutely agree, and I think you bang on with what you said about. We saw it a few times last season with Mason as well. I think he give away a goal towards the end of the season by doing exactly what essentially Keane did, taking too long on the ball, trying to do a cheeky little turn. He's the last man. He loses the ball. We score. And fundamentally, Michael Keane not necessarily did that, but it was just it wasn't quick enough. He was, as you say, he was too far forward. He needs to play the ball a bit quicker. He's not capable of doing that, and unfortunately, it cost us. Now, as I watched that first half, Richarlison to me is not a winger anymore. He's not a winger. He can't. Nope. This is going to sound awful because I loved him, but he got absolutely no change out of their right back, Livramento or whatever his name is. He was a very, very good right back. He beat us left, right, and centre down our left hand side. He at times he tore Richarlison and Luca Dean a new one. As soon as Gray went over to that side for the start of the second half, he was hemmed back. He was pushed back because he had more to deal with. Gray's a little bit more skillful, got a little bit more guile, whereas Richarlison goes and score goals. Richarlison's a striker for me now, 100%, number 9. And we're fortunate we've got two who can do two different things. We've got we've got Richarlison, who is very decent with his feet in the box, quick little touch and shoot. And we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, in my opinion, is the best goal-scoring header in the Premier League, in my opinion. And we saw that, as you said, the transition was scary. Rafa Benitez rightly got amount of plaudits that he did. And the second half was phenomenal. It really impressed me, as you rightly say, with Richarlison charging down, getting us that corner, that first corner. And I sort of, as soon as we scored the first one, I thought, this is a different Everton. Like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to going in at half-time and not necessarily seeing personnel changes, but seeing tactical changes, because Carlo wouldn't have done that. Carlo would have waited 65 minutes. We'd have played exactly the same, and it would have been slow, lethargic, pretty bad at home, like we'd seen against all of these teams that we listed last week. It wasn't like that. And you're right, Rafa does deserve credit for it. He really, really does. And just talk me through the second goal. I mean, that was, oh my God, my heart and my arse completely.
Mate, it's the best 45 minutes I've had since this crazy Wales happened in March 2020. It was unbelievable. It was everything that I wanted when I was thinking about going the game. When we were out of lockdown and it was 39,000 at Goodison on the 14th of August. That second half was everything I wanted. To win the half 3-0, to get 3 points, to see a team who were fighting and pressing. I haven't seen that in a long time. Honestly, I haven't. And now, don't get me wrong, there was times under Carlo. I'm not going to try and revisit or rewrite history here. There was times we were really, really good under Carlo. And I defended Carlo, blind loyalty, saying it will work out. But watching the game last season at Goodison via the TV, obviously, I didn't see those players doing those things that they were doing on Saturday. I didn't see it last season. And what they were doing was they were trying to win the game for Everton Football Club. They were playing for the shirt. I don't think any of those players walked off that pitch and could say, I could do no more there, because the shirt was stuck to them. And maybe that's down to the halftime team talk. Maybe it's down to the tactical changes we've just spoken about. Me sitting in the park end, watching that was fantastic. I don't think I sat down for the last 20 minutes. I was singing songs. When that third goal went in, which I thought was coming, as soon as we scored the second, I said to my mate, we'll score another one here, because Southampton looked jaded. They looked lost. They looked like they couldn't cope with the atmosphere at times as well. The Evertonians, who were cheering every tackle and cheering every throw-in, they looked like they couldn't cope with it. And their fans in the first half, they were sort of saying, is this a library? Shall we sing a song for you? They were white as a ghost themselves in the second half, because Goodison was at it. Goodison was at it. And to be fair, that came from the players. I've just said there at the start of this video that every fan who went to the ground on Saturday should be proud of themselves for playing their part. But what I will say is the second half, the players got us back into it, and that hasn't happened enough for me. It was everything I wanted, Mike. Everything I wanted. The sheer determination from some of our players, and I'm going to mention one in particular because we need to. Abdoulaye Doucouré, a player that played very defensive at times, and we knew from his Watford days that he could be that ball carrying midfielder that we wanted him. And from start to finish, he was absolutely phenomenal. And we even look. I'm not going to blow smoke up Iwobi's arse. I'm not, because we've seen flash in the pan moments from Iwobi, but even when he come on, he looked a different player to some of the times we'd seen last season. He comes on, he's charging at people, he's winning the ball, he gets the ball into feet, he's trying to create chances, and he plays in a ball. The ball gets nodded into Iwobi. He nods it back to Doucouré. And as I explained on the last video, he turns, and how he generates the amount of power from essentially a standing, he hasn't even took a step. He's standing on the ball, and he's absolutely belted it in the top corner. You thought I was going to say Wundercunt. He absolutely belted it in the top corner. And honest to God, my point was up in the air. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. And to say that a player deserved it any more than he did was wrong. And actually, it's funny.
both me and John predicted the first 2 Everton goal scorers. We actually thought we'd win 2-0, so didn't predict the Southampton howler. But we actually predicted Richarlison and Doucouré because I suspected Doucouré would be able to do that, because it's what Rafa did with Newcastle. He had a ball playing midfielder to carry the ball, and Doucouré was fucking immense.
He's a player who doesn't like to lose a duel. He doesn't like to lose any battle he's part of, whether that's a defensive duel or an attacking duel. And you can't get enough of that in a team. I've been very vocal in how I think about Alex Iwobi. What I will say about Alex Iwobi is when he came on Saturday, he's another one who gave 110%. And if you see his reaction when Doucouré scored, he was on his knees. He was wanting to get involved with the Everton fans. He enjoyed that moment so much. And maybe sometimes us as fans, and I'm as guilty as anybody, maybe we don't look at the bigger picture. Maybe he's had a hard time. Maybe lockdown doesn't help a London lad being up north by himself. And maybe that's affected his performances as well. I don't know. What I will say is he was committed on Saturday when he came on. He was really, really committed. And I loved the fact that he was so involved in the celebrations on Saturday. I thought it was just a really nice image to see the whole team, him included, diving into the fans and Seamus Coleman running back and giving the fan who dropped his mobile phone and stuff. It was so good. And look, when he came on, I'm not going to say I cheered it, I roared it. I didn't think this was going to be the turning point of the game. It's a substitution that I really wanted to be James Rodriguez when he's fit. I want James Rodriguez to come onto the pitch and try and win the game for Everton Football Club. But I can't say nothing negative about Alex Iwobi, and I certainly can't say anything negative about Abdoulaye Doucouré. He's an absolute machine. He's a beast. To have someone in your team who's got that mentality that I'm going to win every duel, defensive or attacking, in this game today, invaluable.
And then the third goal, it's probably a little bit easier to explain, but with Richarlison, he makes that run in the channel, which we've seen before. He hits a very, very, very hard, low volley across the box. And Calvert-Lewin did exactly what we sort of expect of Calvert-Lewin. He managed to get knee-high and score a header. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And there's pictures of an Andy Gray header going round.
That's it.
It's actually remarkable how similar those two images are. And I'm glad he got that goal, because a lot of people were saying that he might have been a touch upset about the Euros. He didn't play many minutes. It was sort of a bit of a waste of a summer for him, really. But I sort of flipped it the other way and said, look, this is a kid that got into the England team and, in my opinion, should have had more minutes. That's the manager's fault. You know, Harry Kane, in my opinion, didn't do loads during that tournament to really blow me away and make me think he's a £150 million striker that a lot of people think he is. And I'm not saying he's not a good striker. I'm just saying when the game was going wrong for England, you should have made that change because Calvert-Lewin was a different option. But Calvert-Lewin's come back to Everton. And a big thing that I noticed, which I've got to be honest, I hadn't noticed under Carlo, because I thought the relationship was done. But Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin actually worked hard together, rather than at times last season I almost felt like it was a bit against each other.
It definitely was last season. I think Richarlison wanted to be the man last season. It was very, very evident by October, November. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was going to be the man. He scored 2 hat-tricks in a week. He was in double figures very, very early on in the season. I think Richarlison was only on about 2 or 3 goals, but by a certain point, maybe October, November.
Yeah, he was.
And I think he's the kind of player who he wants. You know, we've seen on his Instagram and his Twitter, he sings his own song. He loves the adulation. There's when he meets kids and signs kids' shirts, he posts it as well. He wants to be the man, and there's absolutely nothing wrong in that. I think we're talking about Calvert-Lewin, and I'm as guilty as any Evertonian here, maybe more so. We've got to be very, very cautious on what we've got. And we don't want to lose it. I've seen people say, you know, to take certain amounts of money. I said last week, if there was a 3-figure number, I would certainly take it, because he's very, very unfairly compared to the man before him, who's Romelu Lukaku, who at times could be a machine, who wouldn't really miss many one-on-ones, and he didn't just score with his head. And I think it's very unfair on Dominic sometimes for us as fans to maybe compare to... He didn't ask to replace Romelu Lukaku. We messed up about 2 windows until Dominic was really ready to be Everton's number 9, and he was thrust into it, and he tried his best as a young, skinny kid, and he'd done his best for the team, and at times it worked. I think now we're very, very close to having the complete striker with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think this season's really big for him. Do I think he's going to be as good as Harry Kane? No. Do I think we're still very lucky to have him as a number 9? Yes. I think there's not many players out there who we could get better. And I'm so happy. You took the words out of my mouth. I'm so happy he got that goal, because he feels, despite being a Sheffield lad, despite not being an Evertonian, he feels to me like one of us. When he's on the pitch, I feel like that's someone who's going to at least run his socks into the ground for that blue shirt. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. And sometimes that is worth its weight in gold for me. And you're right in what you're saying. The two of them linked up really well in the second half. That for me is really promising, as long as Richarlison does play up there with him as a 2 or just off him. I think, like I said, going back to the first half, it's very evident now playing as a left winger, or probably even a right winger now. I don't think we'll see the best out of Richarlison. I think we've got to find a system now to play the 2 of those centrally for me.
Well, this is what I was going to talk about, because he seemed to deploy a 4-2-3-1 in the first half and a 4-4-2 in the second half. He definitely changed it. I think Townsend and Zamari Gray did fantastic jobs, whatever position or role they had.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to say is, obviously we go up against the lead side. We sort of want to touch on this. We're going up against the lead side who got absolutely battered 5-1 at Man United the weekend.
Yeah.
Do you think how because you saw both games, I'm assuming, you know how Leeds sort of play, you know how Everton now play. It's a complete clash in terms of style. I'm actually quite positive about this Leeds game. And if you'd have asked me this before this weekend, I would have said I'm shitting myself. But actually, I feel really confident that we can stop Leeds playing the way they want to play because of our midfield, the 4 in the midfield.
Yeah, well, don't forget, look, it's their first game in front of, 40,000 fans for themselves on Saturday, and they've just been battered by their, not local rivals, but their big rivals, if you will. For whatever reason, that's the big rivalry between Leeds and Manchester United. For their fans.
And that's since they've been promoted as well. That's what people forget because of COVID. So they're going to really go at it.
Oh, they'll come out. Those first, I think the first 10, 15, maybe even 25, 30 minutes, it will be a lot of pressure that we have to soak up. What I will say is we've got the manager who can probably set that team up to do that. Maybe some of the personnel might need tweaking. I certainly don't think he can play a 4-2-3-1 on Saturday. I'm not even sure you can. I'm not even sure you could really play a 4-4-2. I think it's maybe a time that we have to adjust our system at certain times and say, okay, for the first 20 minutes, we're going to play a midfield 5, and we're going to fight, and don't care about attacking, just fight, and then we'll go 4-4-2. And then we'll hit them with wingers when they're tiring. I think the fact that we can maybe do that with this manager, who's shown already last Saturday that he's not afraid to change the formation and even the personnel at times. What personnel that will be on Saturday, I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't want to say because we don't know who's fit. There's 5 players who weren't part of it on Saturday. You don't know who may come back in. Does Yerry Mina come back in? Do we maybe even go to a back 3? Does Jean-Philippe Gbamin come back in because of his physicality in the centre of the park? Does that then mean that we lose maybe Andros Townsend? I don't know. I think there's plenty of options then, and despite us not having this, the greatest summer and the personnel who have come in have not really excited the fans. I think there's options there. There's different options of how we can play. I don't think it's going to be a game where we go 1-0 up in the first 5 or 10 minutes. I think it's going to be a game where we maybe go 1-0 up in the second half and hold on to it. But like I said, the manager's already shown for me that he's not afraid to change things, which is so refreshing because we've had managers in the past who have been shouting, what can you not see that we can see? Make a change. And on the 85th minute, you bring a winger on or something like, on Saturday was really refreshing for me. So going into Leeds, they're going to be a wounded beast, a wounded animal. They're going to come at us. But I'm like you. I am quite confident that we can get something from that game Saturday.
Let's just talk about some of the players we've been linked with and some of the players that have been linked with moves away. So first and foremost, we've been linked with, I think his name's Hoppe from Schalke.
The American guy, yeah.
American lad, £2 million bid apparently. This is a kid that was highly rated. Manchester United, Chelsea, and some of the other teams were linked with him in January. Tottenham and Everton have been linked with him during the summer. Arsenal and Everton, and apparently Everton are going to be the club that step in for £2 million. As we've mentioned before, there's no loss to this, really.
No, there's no risk really, because you can imagine that even if you don't get 2 million back, it's not going to be a massive loss. If you get 1 million back, the books aren't going to be really, we're not hiding FFP documents on that sort of deal, because we can manage through it.
Yeah.
As the type of player he is, I don't know. I know he's a forward player. I know he's rated quite highly by some American Evertonians. I've seen some tweets on some American Evertonians who were saying that they'd love to see him at Goodison Park. Who knows? Let's hope if you do that deal, despite the financials, that he's more of a Landon Donovan than he is, a Joe Max Moore. Joe Max Moore scored 3 or 4 goals in like 2 weeks. Then we saw nothing again for 2 years. Let's hope he's more of a Landon Donovan. What I would say is that me and you and every Evertonian, we have to be patient with players like that. If he comes in for £2 million, a young American, we have to be patient, because you're not going to get 9 or 10 out of 10 every week from someone like that, are you?
Yeah, and some of the players that have been linked with a move away, I just want to touch on these, because there hasn't been loads and loads of rumours. Some of the people that we're close to do find out some very reliable things.
Delph.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away that we may or may not know, and I don't want to speculate too much, because it's really difficult. But there's a lot of players who, towards the end of this window, Everton are fairly excited will be leaving this football club, and it would be really nice if it was people like Fabian Delph. Maybe one of the centre-backs that played the weekend maybe generates a little bit of money for us. I think the possibility of MOISE KEAN leaving is very strong. I think James could potentially leave, which would... look, I think it's a shame that fans wouldn't see him, but I think there's an issue there that probably needs addressing. What spells the end of a good window for you?
Really? I think, I don't know who the player would be, and I don't know how you would generate the funds for a big signing. I think
just one big signing.
If we win or don't lose on Saturday, and then we win or don't lose at Brighton, and somehow you can go and spend 35 million on a game changer, I think the fan base would be rejuvenated going into the summer. I think a lot of doubts, which are here right now, still, despite of Saturday, would be eased. I think this fan base, we now know that we're losing James Rodriguez. We now know that we can't learn to love MOISE KEAN. It's not going to happen. 2 players who we really wanted to adore when MOISE KEAN signed. We wanted him to come and be the man. When James Rodriguez signed, we've seen flashes of what he can do. We wanted to see that in the flesh on a Wednesday night, beating Liverpool, and James Rodriguez is at the forefront of it. We wanted all that. I think we need to bring someone in who can do that. Look, we can't talk too much about certain players who we know aren't part of it anymore. We've lost that. We're going to lose the 2 players I've just said. If somehow all those 3 things combining can financially bring in a match winner for Everton Football Club, if you can upgrade already, and I hate saying this because he played really well on Saturday, but I've got to be realistic here. If you can upgrade Andros Townsend with £35 million attack and winger, I think that would be great. Departures, we've probably lost one already who I didn't want to be there next summer, next season. The other one would be Fabian Delph. I don't want Fabian Delph to be part of my football club, and I understand that people who work at the club may watch these things and be like having a good relationship with the club. Of course we do, but I can only be honest. He is the furthest thing from an Everton Football Club player that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I've seen Klaus Thompson. So I've at least Klaus Thompson put his foot in and wasn't sitting in the stand injured every week. He's the furthest thing from, for someone to go on Instagram and argue back with a fan and mock a fan and say, you wouldn't say this to my face, you'd get a picture with me. That this city and this fan base doesn't accept stuff like that. The sooner he's gone, the better. And if he's on the pitch, I can't tell you one thing he's done when he's been fit on that pitch. I can't tell you one thing. And there's games he's played. In fact, I can. He came on in the wrong pair of socks last season at Arsenal, which sums his Everton career up. If you can get him gone, there's one already gone that I didn't want there. We'll probably go. And I would keep James Rodriguez. And I completely understand fans who say, I wouldn't. Because the team performance in the second half on Saturday would have been very different if James Rodriguez would have played, possibly, because it wouldn't have had that defensive stability. It wouldn't have had the work rate with him in there. I don't know, John, who's a big part of this channel, he's rightly got views that are a bit different for me. I can just say I'd want James Rodriguez to stay there. I'd like him to be a part of it. I don't expect him to play every week. I imagine there'll be a part for him to play. But for me, if you can get rid of Fabian Delph, if you can keep James Rodriguez, and we can somehow generate funds, hopefully, and I hate saying hopefully, but it's come to that point now, via a MOISE KEAN sale, to bring in a game changer. Someone who's on the pitch, you can say, that's another player on the pitch who can win this game for us today. Because there's only 2 or 3 out there at the moment. And that's not going to take you where you want to go, really. There's teams above us who've got 4 or 5. And teams of I'm not talking Man City, I'm not talking Man United or Chelsea, I'm talking like Tottenham's, and your Leicester's. There's 4 or 5 players. Aston Villa, I've got 4 or 5 players there now who can win a game for them. For me, we've only got 2 or 3. I'd love to bring in more. What I would like to say to you, Mike, though, is on Saturday, going back, I know you've asked me lots of questions, but just spin it a little bit. Do you think it was a blessing, really, that James wasn't available? Because if the team sheet came out at 2 o'clock on Saturday and he just wasn't part of it, maybe the reaction wouldn't have been the best. Do you think it was a blessing in disguise that by a Friday afternoon we knew he wasn't part of it?
I think it was because, you know, I think in that press conference, I think he was very, very clever to mention only James, and he didn't mention the other 4 players, which, you know, by all accounts, Ben Godfrey was also one of those players isolated, and I'm sure he will be back. Because of the Monday, I'm sure he will be back, albeit I don't necessarily think he's going to be matched team trained, because I don't think he's going to be able to train with the team. So that could be a problem. But yeah, I suspect, and equally, look, it sounds bad. How many times when our backs were against the wall did James Rodriguez, in my opinion, change the game? And I can think of early games last season. I can think of West Brom, we were 2-1 down. I can think of Brighton at home. I think we were 2-1 down as well. And he sort of creates that little bit of magic and we score. But I certainly didn't see it towards the end of the season. So I've got no hope that when we were 1-0 down to Southampton and you're popping your hat on James Rodriguez and saying, right, go and win this game for us. I don't know if he's doing that. Whereas I trust Richarlison to at least put his socks up and
that's fair. Yeah.
So I don't think it was a bad thing that he didn't play. I don't necessarily think the fans were happy about it, because I think at least fans would just like to see him in the flesh, and I get that. I understand that. The issue is that's not going to happen, because as we know, you know, the games, the home game against Burnley now is now after deadline day. So unless you're an away fan, you're not going to see him at Leeds and Brighton potentially. I think for me, James Rodriguez not playing and it coming out the way that it did wasn't the end of the world. Let's just say that. Would I have preferred to have seen him in the team? Yes. Even if it was a 5 or 10 minute cameo, that I think that would have been great. But it didn't happen. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I would prefer him to stay. Absolutely prefer him to stay. I just don't think he will. And I don't know. I don't know whether that's the right thing.
What about you? What about your perfect end of the transfer window? You've asked me mine. where do you stand if the window closes and if a football club are in a certain situation with the incomings and outgoings? What's the perfect scenario for you?
To be honest, and this is going to sound awful, but I've actually found this window really refreshing because, you know, we've had windows like this before Farhad Mashiri and the money and under David Moyes. And, you know, some of our most successful seasons in the last 15 years have been built on sides that cost very little, were classed as underdogs, and come and did well at Everton. The season we finished 4th in the Premier League, you know, was a team that we saw Marcus Bent, Kevin Kilban, Arteta coming in the January. You know,
Tim Cahill came in, didn't he?
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with going and signing this young lad. I think his name's Buta, at right back. I'm fine with going and signing Hoppe from Schalke and spending £6 million on the pair of them. I'm happy spending £10 million this window and trying to generate funds because I'm happy with Rafa Benitez understanding where Everton Football Club are currently right now and giving him the chance next season to have a little bit more money. So the big signing isn't as pressing for me as long as the signings we're making now are buying into what we're trying to do, playing for the shirt, getting the fans back on side, not sulking if we go 1-0 down. I think it's very difficult to find a player from our experience that can be worth £35-40 million and we know they would die for this football team. Yeah. Because it sounds bad, I still to this day don't think there's many in that team. And I think Rafa's got to change that. And he showed on Saturday that he's capable of doing it. And that team played in the second half in such a more appealing style of play than I saw under anything after January with Carlo Ancelotti. So, honestly, if the window finished tomorrow, I'm okay with it. Genuine. I would prefer a better right back, and that's not a criticism of Coleman. I would prefer a right back. I would probably prefer a centre half as well, and one of the two that played on Saturday going out. I'd probably still like a creative number 10 type of player to come in. But Andros Townsend got 3 goal scoring opportunities, one of the highest in Everton's, you know, over the last 2 years. Andros Townsend, the sort of player who was free, couldn't get a game at Crystal Palace. Damari Gray played 10 times for Leverkusen and 4 times or something, 5 times for Leicester. He was phenomenal and has been since he's walked into that club. And Asmi and Begovic is a safe pair of hands. Honestly, if the window finished, down.
I agree. I think £35 million player who can care and die for the club, they're few and far between. And you can get them. You've seen these teams get them, and that for me, it's a whole new video. But this is why we have a director of football for me, and I think that the fingers should be on the pulse of these players as and when the money comes in. We should now be going, and maybe it was Leon Bailey, maybe it was Denzel Dumfries. I don't know. I only see what you see, and you know, got the same friends that you've got. Maybe it was them too. I just hope that now they're off the list, that there's 2 more players on there, and as soon as that MOISE money comes in, the Andre Gomez money comes in, the James Rodriguez money comes in, that we're able to spend it, because I do think we need more. If the window closed after this video with that squad, it would be caught out very quickly. Yeah, in time with a few injuries. Yeah, it would.
Well, look, again, we said it was going to be a short one, 43 minutes long. I mean, that's just how we roll on the podcast. I've even had to ask Rose if she can record tomorrow. So
sorry, Rose. Sorry.
She'll be fine. She sent me a message as well, to be fair to her. It's always good to have that conversation with you, Millsy. I, as you know, I absolutely love you. The Across the Park podcast, I just want to mention it. It's going really well at the minute for you guys, I would say. I listened to your last show. I thought it was very good. I just love it, the fact that it's Liverpool and Everton. I absolutely love it. So
What have you got coming up for us? What have we got coming up?
I don't love it sometimes. It can be an absolute tough gig. Anyone who doesn't know me, who just knows me through this channel, I also do a podcast called Across the Park Podcast, which is a couple of blues and a couple of reds. We get together each week and we just talk about the football. I try and give it as much as I can. I take it also as much as I can, and it can be a good laugh. It's not for everyone. We've got just as many people who say, I can't listen to that, than we do who say we listen to and love it. And I understand both elements. I wouldn't listen to an Across the Park podcast when Everton lost on Liverpool. Well, I personally wouldn't, but we try and keep it fun. We're in our fourth season now. I'm off the podcast tonight. The lads who were on there tonight are Judgy and Pricey, the two blues, who were two boss lads. You've had Judgy on this channel a couple of times, haven't you? So they're recording tonight, which will be out tomorrow. But yeah, we've got lots of good things going. We were networking at the match on Saturday, speaking to a couple of ex-players and things, because we do shows like, Mike, with interviews and things. So hopefully, yeah, we're in our fourth season now, so it's going really well. Anyone who wants to check it out, it's not video, so you'll be very pleased to know it's not video. It's just audio. If you go to work and you want to put it on your Bluetooth, or you're going for a run and you fancy a laugh, it's over Twitter at Across the Park PC.
So, guys, look, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to try and get this video out for 7, so wish me luck. Guys, I will see you tomorrow with Rose for another podcast. Peace.
Thanks, Mike.
See you soon, guys.